going to be an emotional thing it's going to be like an emotional progressive thing for me. And I think a part of the gang stalking is the demonic people, like they need people to prey on and to live off of. And I'm sort of like slamming the door in their faces by doing that as well. Like, you don't have the authority to listen. You're not going to be a part of my life anymore. Like the phone calls, like it's over with, bitch. Fuck you. Whatever. When you get what you got coming, remember what you did to me. You stupid fucking bitch. And so that's the feeling. That's not directed towards anybody in particular. That's just sort of the feeling I'm putting across.
Right.
Like,
you know what I mean? If you can figure out who's the face of it for you, really, it's the feedback on them.
Yeah, motherfucker. Yeah. Don't look at me. Look behind your fucking back, dumb motherfucker. So, right. So that's sort of the vibe I'm giving off as I'm moving on. And you know what I mean? Like, I'm not playing any game with these motherfuckers. Like, fuck that shit. So, but what part of, you know what I mean? So, but so I'm gonna do a little more reading. Do you mind if I hit one more reading real quick? Okay.
Yeah.
For example, heroin addicts were enticed into participating in LSD experiments in order to get a reward. Heroin, perhaps most disturbing of all, was the fact that the extent of the experimentation on human subjects was unknown. The records of all these activities were destroyed in January 1973 at the instruction of then CIA Director Richard Helms. In spite of persistent inquiries by both the Health Subcommittee and Intelligence Committee, no additional records or information were forthcoming, and no one single individual could be found who remembered the details. Not the director of the CIA, who ordered the documents destroyed, not official responsible for the program, not the official responsible for the program, nor any of his associates. We believe that the record, incomplete as it was as complete as it was going to be. Then one individual, through a Freedom of Information request, accomplished what two U.S. Senate committees could not. He spurred the agency into finding additional records pertaining to the CIA's program of experimentation with human subjects. These new records were discovered by the agency in March. Their existence was not made known to Congress until July. The records reveal a far more extensive series of experiments than had previously been thought. 86 universities or institutions were involved. New instances of unethical behavior were revealed. The intelligence community of this nation, which requires a shroud of secrecy in order to operate, has a very sacred trust from the American people. The CIA's program of human experimentation of the 50s and 60s violated that trust. It was violated again on the day the bulk of the agency's records were destroyed in 1973. It is violated each time a responsible official refuses to collect the details of the program. The best safeguard against abuses in the future is a complete public accounting of the abuses of the past. I think this is illustrated as Chairman I forgot how to say that again, Josh. Inouye? How are you saying it?
Just pretty close to Inouye, I think.
Inouye? Okay. I think this is illustrated as Chairman Inouye pointed out. These are questions that happened in the 50s and 60s and go back some 15 to 20 years ago, but they are front page news today, as we see in the major newspapers and on the television and in the media of this country. And the reason they are, I think, is because it just continuously begins to trickle out, sort of month after month. And the best way to put this period behind us, obviously, is to have the full information. And I think that is the desire of Admiral Turner and of the members of this committee. The Central Intelligence Agency drugged American citizens without their knowledge or consent. It used university facilities and personal personnel without their knowledge. It funded leading researchers often without their knowledge. These institutes, these individuals have a right to know who they are and how they were used. As of today, the agency itself refuses to declassify the names of those institutions and individuals. Quite appropriately, I might say, with regard to the individuals under the Privacy Act, it seems to me to be a fundamental responsibility to notify those individuals or institutions, rather. I think many of them were caught up in an unwitting manner to do research for the agency. Many researchers, distinguished researchers, some of our most outstanding members of our scientific community involved in this network now really do not know whether they were involved or not. And it seems to me that the whole health and climate in terms of our university and our scientific and health facilities are entitled to that response. All right, I'm finished reading. Josh, how do you feel about that? Or do you have any more different sorts of insights than anything else?
Well, I mean, as far as the universities, there's so much. I found some articles out there that were very interesting about the CA's involvement in academia, and I know that when I was a kid, one of the places I was taken to, I don't know if I should say the name or not, but pretty major research institute. And they had a whole setup in there. It was like they gave me some kind of weird test that involved like flashing images or something on a computer. They had my brain hooked up to electrodes, all this stuff. So that would be a case where that kind of thing's still going on there. There was also something that I don't remember exactly what was done to me. Other than I remember being on a table, but this is in a room like on the ground floor at one of the University of Texas system colleges. I think it was Prairie View, UT at Prairie View. So again, we keep going back to that same thing. It's like they just came out and said, "Okay, you caught us," and merrily they go back onto it. It's really kind of mind-boggling too, like the whole network of people that they have that are participating. You kind of sometimes wonder at each level what they say. They always say at each level of lie is different. I think, like you're saying, with compartmentalization, and maybe that's part of why it's so hard to get this whole thing broken down.
Yeah, it is. It's very compartmentalized, and I don't, I know I've been going through it for 3 years, and I can imagine the money that's been spent on it, and I can imagine the networking and the coordination behind it, and I can imagine, the evil people involved with it. And like I said, I'm motherfucker. I'm not supporting anybody's fucking weird fantasies anymore. I'm fucking out. I'm doing my off the grid series, and I'm finishing it up, and I'm getting targets together, and we're gonna be having fun together. Yeah. Fuck that fucking bullshit. So, but yeah, Josh, it's really interesting. Like, we can go back and we can read these old files, and we can see that the same things that have been going on to people way back then are going on to people now. And it's really it's horrible. It's really fucking horrible. I wish people actually knew what I've been going through for 3 years, every single fucking day, day, all day long, every day for 3 years. So Josh,
it's like you wouldn't wish it on anybody though. At the same time, you know what I mean?
Would. I do. I wish the people who've done some of the things to me, if this could happen to them, I would vote for it. I wish something worse would happen to them.
But I mean, like, just our audience. I wouldn't wish on our audience that they aren't going through it. If
no, I wouldn't wish it on the audience. People, no, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know. Maybe one, Josh, don't you think it would be cool if we could give people demonstrations of it? Like teach people what it's like and how to do it. Like show people what it feels. I think that would be a wonderful thing. I think that would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, we can have all our own group of TI actors. We can do street theater on people, and but as long as they understand what they're participating in, and when we do it, they're not gonna like freak out on us. That'd be the only thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I wish I could give people I wish I could give people just like a classroom demonstration, show them what it's like for just, maybe an hour to walk around being followed by people's red shirt. But it would never really be the same thing. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But I guess it would be like an open window to them to learn about it.
Mhm.
And so, it'd definitely be an open window for them to learn about it, but I don't think we could really learn um I don't think we could really ever learn how to, we can get close to it though. Like people like me and you, if a few of us who've been going through it for a while got together, we could probably come up with some some scenarios that were really similar, but at the same time they would know what was happening. See what I'm
Right.
saying?
Do you
They
feel
they
like
would know they would know it's just they would know it's just an example. And so it wouldn't, if it just started happening to somebody and they didn't know what was going on, it'd be far different. But
yeah. My only fear is that if they get the lesson enough to start seeing it happening around like to other people, like they're going out and maybe somebody else is getting gang stalked, like to what degree have we just sensitized them to where they suddenly start to wonder if it's them, and it could be them too, but I just kind of would worry about that as well. If they really got it and they noticed it, I wonder what that would be like if they started to see it
mhm,
anytime they went grocery shopping or something. You know what I mean?
mhm. Yeah, what do you mean like have them go grocery shopping and follow them around the stores and stuff? Like,
Well, like if they went to one of your classes, but somehow because they got the message, they were able to witness it happening around them. Now, like maybe they're in there and there's like a TI in there who's getting actively gang stalked, like right near them, and they see it, and then they see it more and more, and then it starts to happen where they're seeing it so much they start to wonder if they're now being gang stalked.
mhm.
You see what I mean? Like if they were to get sensitized. I'm not saying it would happen. I just, was kind of curious if you thought that was a possibility.
Yeah. Man, I remember one time, I remember back when I was being gang stalked, I would go to my window and I would look out, and just because I looked out the window, the Christmas lights, like this was all a orchestrated technological thing of gang stalking, but one house would have the
Right.
Christmas lights on. And then when I walked out there, outside, all the Christmas lights in the neighborhood would come on just because I walked outside. Like it was little stuff like that would happen. Like this stuff was really set up to fuck, this stuff's really set up to fuck with people's minds. I don't think most people realize what it is to live like that. To just because you go to
Right.
a window and look out the window, people like a network has the ability to like start making people's Christmas lights come on, and then you walk outside and all the Christmas lights come on, or you come home and all your neighbors like the majority of your neighbors' house lights are on in broad daylight for the gaslighting effect, and people purposely like park cars in their driveway just because of the colors of the fucking cars, and people put stuff in their yard just because of people don't have any idea what it is to live like that. And that's just a small
Yeah.
like that's nothing. That's just a fucking flicker of that's just a flicker of it. And so, to simulate this stuff for people, we could do it. I think that we can come up with some really good classes and courses, but the level of the inhumane harassment and stalking and the criminality of it, I don't think people would really get it.
Right.
They,
No,
they
well, I mean, dude, I was just thinking about like the thing that happened to me a lot that gets to me is like, imagine every time you go and you turn on your car, if you left the radio on, it's like it'll either be a song telling you to run, usually Pink Floyd, run, 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 you know, another runner in the night. There's all those different songs, or you do run, run, run. It's like right when you're getting the pressure of all like the death threats or the something's bad's gonna happen to you if you stay at your house tonight, and you're not like meaning to time. You didn't know how you're timing this, but you walk out and whatever like song comes on is some type of trigger. And so that kind of stuff happens in addition to what you're saying with like their lights coming on or people behaving strangely. And it just gets to where you do start to change your behaviors. Like I would get to where I would just keep the radio off, even though I'm very much into music. I'm a musician. Like I would stop going to the store at certain stores sometimes, and I would try to maybe if I go somewhere else, I'll avoid it. You know what I mean? And it
Right.
didn't really matter. It was like any store that I went to, there was something. I almost felt like I was sent by one trigger into the arms of another, like bouncing around like a ping pong ball, trying to not get irritated with what was happening.
Right.
And man,
Right.
that goes on and on and on. Oh, dude, it's just no, it's horrible.
Yeah. You know, it's a real it's really wild, and I think most people who are listening to us, they hear the things we're saying, and unless they're going through it, they won't know how it is to go through every single day like that. Like
Mhm.
after 5 days, the average person is going to be terrified. They're not going to want to. They're just going to be like, "Please stop, just please stop." And it does. Oh no, what do you mean stop, motherfucker? We're just this might be going on for the rest of your life. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
people don't
Right.
get that. They do not get that. They do not get that. That this is something that you're being stalked by street terrorists and having your food drugged and electronical weapons and all sorts of psychological harassment techniques and subliminal neural linguistic street theater plays and shit. Like I try to go meet some girl just because I like her and the girl shows interest in me and she likes me, and the next thing you know they're bribing the girl and getting the girl to participate. They're doing like little neural linguistic street theater plays to symbolize the girl sucking some guy's fucking dick to try to make me jealous or something, like all kinds of crazy ass
Oh
shit.
wow.
Yeah, I'm not
Wow.
joking, dude. I got to live like this for 3 years. Like
Mhm.
I can't even go hang out with people without the people being bribed to participate in these little weird sick fucking games. And I have to live like that. I've had my food drug. I had my life threatened and shit like that. Like it doesn't affect me as much as it used to because I'm used to. I've been going through it for so long. I'm used to it. It's like I don't like whatever. Fuck you then, bitch. Like go about your business then, you dumbass hoe. Like that's the mentality I've derived from it. Yeah, yeah. I'm just being honest, man. That's the mentality I've derived. Like if somebody like if you're feeling the game if you want that Walmart card that bad and like you can't kick it with me and talk to me, then fuck you then. I'm not gonna I'm not whatever, man. Like fuck it. But that's just what's going on. People don't understand what it is to live like that. And have
They
like
don't. I wish that I had said that to somebody. I remember a couple of weekends ago I was out with some friends and there's one of them who it's like I know that like nothing's ever going to happen, but I do have just a little bit of a crush, right? And
right.
nobody knows that as far as I know except me. But while we're walking through this place in Dallas, like window shopping, there's always this couple that keeps passing us by, and they're saying little things like, "Oh, it must be fate," like little hints of like, "Oh, we know that you kind of find this person attractive." It's like you do sometimes if you're in a mood want to turn at them and just say, "Look, asshole, you shut your trap." And like you're saying, go take your gift card or whatever it is, and you can go shove it where the sun doesn't shine, or go use it, but get out of my face. Or it's, there's some days, dude. There's some days where you almost like want them to come up to you and just like give you the opportunity to get into it with them and just kick their ass. But I try to not do that because that means they're starting to win on the anger thing about needing to like get that aggression out somehow, and that's part of that whole thing where they go too long and people run out and they get the guns, like you're saying. Um,
Right.
and
Right.
yeah, and it's the combination of that, or it's the MK Ultra. And I know that the one guy, I'm not going to say the name, but the Aurora shooter, I can remember my handler talking to me about him. He was one of hers for a subjects actually, and the
Mhm.
university he was at in the graduate department, they were researching Lunesta, and they were covertly his classmates were covertly drugging him shortly before he did that shooting. Um, so this is some serious stuff, and I don't know what's going to take for people to get it. I think it's just going to have to be like actual disclosure on like the news that everybody watches, you know. But I don't foresee that happening anytime soon, unfortunately.
I mean, there's already been disclosures. Like we're like, we're sitting here today getting covertly drugged and people using radiation weapons and psychotronic weapons on us in 2018. And like, as you can see, there was congressional hearings and like actual hearings where you had like the director of the CIA and stuff like admitting they were doing this to people back in the set. I mean, it was going on back in like 1953 officially on paper. And
Right.
you like nothing stopped. I mean, the CIA. I don't think the CIA is formally. I think what's happened is it's went more rogue. Like there's black. It's
Mhm.
like it's turned like back. See, the United States government was so different than it is in today's world. Back in like the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, it was a lot different today, especially in the 50s. But in today's world, like the CIA, as the CIA is, I don't think they're really running. I'm sure they're still involved into that kind of, covert illegal. I'm sure they're still involved in a lot of covert illegal stuff. But as far as the real power structure, I think they went rogue. I think the top authority in the government went rogue a long time ago, and it's like
Well,
black
yeah.
operations. Where pretty much they have all they can do what the government can do and 10 times more, but they're not officially a part of the government. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
So
yeah, no, exactly. Because when they were talking to me about that stuff, I think they had already or gone rogue by the time Bush was in there for a year. And I mean, my two handlers, who both worked for the CIA, were not just loyal Americans. They were like double and triple agents for guess who? China, Russia, and North Korea. And so the Five Eyes, the intelligence agencies, aren't even loyal to their countries. They're part of the global cartel now. That's everybody from every
right,
country is making money being a shill for somebody. There's nobody that's just like I'm a CIA agent who loves America. It doesn't exist anymore. Everybody's getting paid under the table to take it international and do multiple back and forth espionage on all the different countries. I mean, it's like it's almost unstoppable if they don't take themselves down somehow.
right, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, I want to get into Josh. That reading, that reading, I've traveled down further. Um, and that reading went on for like, a couple hundred pages, about them getting together and doing the Select Committee on Intelligence. And now I want to get into more of the documents that the CIA has produced themselves. And then
Okay.
I have other documents too I can read from about actual lawsuits that are in federal court right now pertaining to gang stalking, where they literally, word for word, they literally talk about the mimic effect and gang stalking, and like that's actually in court. There's actually court cases going right now where people are suing people and they're trying to get information and they're actually using the term gang stalking in federal court. And
Oh,
so
awesome.
yeah, yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I don't, we're kind of jammed on time. We don't have the time to sit down and go over all of this, but we can brush some tail feathers, so to speak, on a couple of these issues. But it's not a joke. It's going down. There's people out there like literally coming to conclusions about the mimic effect and about street theater, and like this stuff is in now it's in federal documents. Like it's not a joke. Like there's people under investigation. There's people, like it's going down. Like this isn't a fucking joke anymore. Like it's coming out now.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to read. Okay, so documents referring to discovery of additional MK Ultra material, June 22nd, 1977, Deputy Director of Central Intelligence, Deputy Director of Science and Technology, request for guidance on handing recently located MK Ultra material. This memorandum is to advise you that additional MK Ultra documents have been discovered and to obtain your approval for follow on actions required. Paragraph 7 contains a recommended course of action as a result of John Mark's FOIA Freedom of Information Act request. All of the MK Ultra material in OTS possession was reviewed for possible release to him Following that review, the OTS material in the Retired Records Center was searched. It was during that later search that the sub-project files were located among the retired records of the OTS budget and fiscal section. These files were not discovered earlier, as the earlier searches were limited to the examination of the active and retired records of those branches considered most likely to have generated or have had access to MKUltra documents. Those branches included chemistry, biological, behavioral activities, and contracts management. Because Dr. Gottlieb, and I want to stop right here. I just love Dr. Gottlieb. People don't know Dr. Gottlieb was a Nazi who was brought into America, but because Dr. Gottlieb, he introduced LSD to the CIA officially. Because Dr. Gottlieb retrieved and destroyed all the MKUltra documents, he was able to locate. It is not surprising that the earlier search for MKUltra documents directed at areas where they were most likely to be found was unsuccessful. The purpose of establishing the MKUltra mechanism was to limit knowledge of the sensitive work being performed to those with an absolute need to know if those precepts had been followed. The recently found B and F files should have contained only financial and administrative documents. In retrospect, I released that. So that's one of the. It goes on, but that's one of the files. And the interesting thing about the mind control is it was closely related to actual real Nazis involved in these programs. And the radiation experiments done by Joseph Mengele at Auschwitz reminds me a lot of the MKUltra programs in America. So I think there's a very close relationship between the experiments done on the little Jewish children in Auschwitz and the experiments done on the little children during the MKUltra program. And I think that coincides with what's going on in today's world with this gang stalking because it's very similar. There's a direct connection between experiments during the Holocaust and gang stalking. And so that's interesting. I just wanted to mention that, but go on, Josh.
Oh yeah, no, I'd like to hear more about that. And I guess also just say, yeah, people, if you want to go back into like the earliest history, like Jamil was saying, like Dr. Gottlieb is like definitely somebody to look into in addition to you and Cameron, and read up on Project Paperclip as well, so that you know how we got these people here and why. Let's see, I remember one time being told. Maybe this is just case specific to me, but my dad saying something to me about how the Nazis had wanted to create a perfect spy, and that kind of goes back to what you were talking about with the interrogation techniques and stuff, which I find is why it's so strange when they do it on a kid, because a kid doesn't have any like secrets necessarily to tell, unless it's the secret itself of the fact that you're being experimented on. But they do a lot. They LSD, when that became something that was not, I guess, as interesting to them, they continue to research in that particular way. They explained to me that that's kind of when they moved over to the electroshock and focused more on that. And that's, I think, that's more for the compliance purposes for creating the people that are storing like classified information, I guess you could say. But they did mention too, people who were not necessarily in it as kids, they're like, the development of the chips and the more of the electromagnetic weapons, among other things. They said we can get people who never went through what you did, Josh, to have the same body memories or the same experiences of body memories simply by attacking them with this stuff. So I can't imagine how far all their techniques and their research has come since that thing first started. They must have had like a multi-year vision for this. I don't know. I guess it's the ultimate control of everything. But those are my initial thoughts on it. What do you think?
I agree. I definitely agree with you. And what I remember you were saying, Josh, about you were saying something about the overall experimentations, how people would actually come to you in person, like you've gone through the MKUltra stuff, and you said people would actually come speak to you personally about it. What do you think? I want to ask you this. What do you think it is about gang stalking where people can have all this stuff happening to them, but they never talk to anybody directly about it? Like even with the Scientology stalking, the Scientologist will stalk the person and still come up to them and talk to them and try to bring them back into the group. Like with the mind control experiments, a lot of these people have talked to doctors and different sorts of stuff. But with the gang stalking, I mean, some of these people probably follow you in person. You end up talking to, you don't even know it. But we talk to people participating in it all the time. But there's never there's not like a gang stalking board. There's not a gang stalking office somewhere. Like the Central Intelligence Agency is a real agency. They have a headquarters. You can call them on the phone. Like we could call the CIA right now if we wanted to. Like you
Right.
can go knock on their door. Like if they're not hidden from anywhere. Like this is real documentation, and they're there. But with the gang
Right.
stalking,
I don't think it's true that they don't have an office, though. I think there's a brain that controls it, and part of it is AI, and part of it is actually the DHS fusion centers.
right?
So I've heard, yeah, that the fusion centers are actually a lot of the places where some of these people can go to get trained, how they're recruited, because those DHS centers are working with those neighborhood watch groups. As part of that, see something, say something thing, I guess it really got started at around 9/11, where it was like if you need to report a tip of some kind, like you think suspect terrorism or this that, they just kind of expanded on that notion, and they've sort of networked it electronically now. Where it could be as simple as, oh, there's somebody weird in your neighborhood. He's wearing this and this, and then make that person go outside and stand on their porch and fold their arms and stare at you, and you're like, lady, I live here. Like I got harassed in my own neighborhood walking my dog one time by one of the lawn guys. And thankfully, I didn't just stand there and take it. I went up to his employer and I was like, your lawn jockey out here is bothering me while I'm walking my dog. I live here. He doesn't. I'm your neighbor, like 3 houses down. Are you going to do something about it? And he did fire the guy. That was one case where taking action, it got something done. But what do you do when it's, that's the thing I think a lot of people would ask, what do I do when it's cars, or what do I do when it's total strangers, walking around Walmart? It's like you don't want to necessarily come up and cause a confrontation with someone who is or isn't even going to know what you're talking about. They may not think they're doing it, and if they look at you and tell you, no, I'm not doing anything to you, and if you don't get out of my face, I'm going to punch you, well, then you've just had another negative interaction. I mean, there's like nobody but other targets really to talk to in some ways. I think it's very isolating in that regard. And I think that these people know this because they've done it. They've done this numerous times on different populations. I mean, a lot of this started out as a way to bring somebody down when they were trying to leave the agency.
Right.
If you're CIA and you're trying to leave the agency, this is kind of what they do, especially if you know too much. So they're just putting regular people through the know too much program. It's just kind of mind blowing, really mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it is. It's very mind blowing. Josh, one of the things I want to ask you was, remember when Ritalin came around?
Yeah.
Do you think that was a behavioral experiment? Because I remember when I was growing up, it's like they wanted all the children to take Ritalin.
Mhm.
You
I think
think
probably
that
so. Yeah, man. I think it was like more of a group study, because I know when that was still kind of being formulated or tested for that, when I was a kid, they used a combination of an amphetamine plus Seroquel, which is an antipsychotic that makes you sleepy. So it's like they would cancel each other out. They would use cocktails like that for some of the programming. Like maybe they sit you down in front of a computer. You're gonna like be learning a bunch of stuff that the CIA wants you to know, and they want it to seem like you're somewhere it's not your bedroom. They would do stuff like that to me. Like, here's some Adderall, and here's a Seroquel, and we're gonna sit you down once it kicks in, and we're gonna turn on this fan and have it blowing on you, and then like V2K the information into your head and tell you this is happening because of aliens. And they did stuff like this, quite frequently actually. So a lot of the stuff they're using for the gang stalking, they're using for the MK Ultra programming too. Like if you can imagine, on a kid. If you're already like zonked out, you don't know what you took, you don't even know that you took anything, you know, people are like feeding information to you, and giving you suggestions and stuff like that, and they're using the V2K on you. You might believe anything that they tell you. Like that's this is not a technology that it's the voice of God that you're hearing right now. You're special. You know, God is telling you what to type into the computer, and they would do stuff like that. And it wasn't until I got to junior high school where I met these other contacts. I started telling them my memories and how weird I thought everything was, and they started explaining it to me. They're like, yeah, there's this microwave hearing effect, and there's this and that, you know, which was good for me because that kind of got in the way of any programming that they did about something that was a little too like fantastical. But no, it's like a cluster. I don't want to say the other word, but it's just a total cluster all over the place with this stuff.
Right. Yeah, it is. Because I'm looking at one of the MK Ultra documents, and it's talking about how federal involvement in the use of behavior modification drugs on grammar school children, of the right to privacy inquiry, 10th hearing before subcommittee on the Committee of Government Operations, House of Representatives, 91st Congress, second session, September 29th, 1970. Printed for the use of the Committee on Government Operations.
Hmm.
This is some pretty serious stuff, man. This isn't a joke.
It's very serious.
This
No,
is
it's not at all.
Dude, man, this is some serious ass fucking shit. You're talking about motherfuckers have been drugging us and using electronical weapons on us and stalking us. This is some serious fucking shit. This isn't a fucking joke.
Right.
This is serious. This is very fucking serious.
This is the population control thing, I think.
Right.
Underway. Yeah. I mean, how serious is it? I could tell you some memories about when we would get drugged at school. That they have that break time where you get your animal crackers and your like Kool-Aid. Well, the handlers working at the school, it's like anybody that they need to drag off to like one of the other rooms to do something. It was just like, and everybody there knew it. And that's the thing, is they're all so terrified. Nobody could go to the police, to the FBI, to anybody. We could all be in there. Three of us get like knocked out from the Kool-Aid we just drank. They'll have a programming session in the bathroom. Let you sleep, wake up. Next thing you don't know what happened. Now you're back in class. You're like, wow. And they're getting away with this. They're getting away with it in schools. They're getting away with it in places of work. They're getting away with it in church. They're getting away with it wherever they want to. And
yeah, and they're using neighborhood. Yeah. The criminals are using neighborhood watch groups as front organizations to terrorize people. Right here it says Advisory Committee on Human Radiation Experiments, final report October 1995. And it's talking about the radiation. This is what people who are being gang stalked are going through. It looks like the mind control experiments of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They've definitely still continued, and they've been done more covertly and more like they've found out different ways to do it. They've networked it differently because that they were getting exposed. Like they were getting exposed back in the 70s, so they had to find they morphed it into street terrorism. And now they're street terrorizing people to commit their crimes. And this is fucking crazy. And this is connected, like that guy, what's his name? Joseph Delgado. Joseph Delgado was at Yale University. Oh, fuck, Yale University. Yeah. Joseph Delgado, Radio Matador stops wired bull. These motherfuckers out of their fucking mind, man. They're out of their goddamn fucking minds. It's criminals out of their fucking minds, and nobody can stop them.
Right.
Monkeys and stuff, and cats and stuff. What the fuck?
Absolutely no ethics. I mean, I really feel like we didn't. I mean, we won, but we never really ended World War II, especially with the paperclip stuff. I feel like America, we got the illusion of still being here, but we've got some serious house cleaning to do at a lot of levels if we're going to keep this country sovereign like it's supposed to be.
Josh, listen to this. This article is from 1976, and it says sci-fi comes true. Mind reading machine tells secrets of the brain. In a program are of science fiction, the government is developing mind reading machines that can show, among other things, whether a person is fatigued, puzzled, or daydreaming. If the project lives up to its promise, the machines could be in use in airplane cockpits before the end of the decade to warn a pilot that his mind is wandering and he is failing to perform essential duties. Since 1973, a little known Pentagon agency has been studying ways to plug a computer into an individual's brain. It's hard for me to read it because it's a photocopy of an old article. It's like one of those black and white newspaper things where you can
Yeah.
hardly read. Individuals'
Yeah.
brainwaves are electronic signals in the scientist's lexicon. The Advanced Research Projects Agency says that 1 million a year program has passed its initial laboratory tests and it's ready for determination of its military uses. Scientists working under agency contracts at University of looks like Illinois, but I can't make it out. UCLA, Stanford, Massachusetts, Institute of Technology, and University of Rochester, and in laboratories at other facilities have been able to determine an individual's alertness from his brainwaves. They can tell also how he perceives colors and shapes. But there may come a day when the EEG will be used to perform far more bizarre tasks. At UCLA, scientists are working on the use of EEG or control machines to give it a trivial application. Thought wave. I can't make out the rest of it. Just something about the Pentagon and something. But isn't that crazy?
It would. That sounds like the stuff that the techno crime fighters talk about, where they talk about the EEG cloning and like the heterodyning. Um, which I don't know the science really exactly of what they're doing, but I guess that's something that's connected to what people are
Dude,
thinking is this another level of technology, the R&M and stuff like that.
they're not even, you know what, dude? I was doing some bizarre shit. Like I remember when I came out of the psychiatric institute, I had a fucking Burger King hat on and I was doing YouTube videos called Burger King versus gang stalking and I was calling all the Burger Kings across the country and asking them if I ate there would they covertly drug me. And it was called Burger King versus gang stalking and stuff. And I'm looking back at myself from this point, and had I not been fucked with so much, I doubt I would have never done anything like that. Like I was fucking angry, I was pissed off, I had been getting stalked and harassed, and I was doing some like obscene stuff online. But I can look back in my life, I wouldn't have been doing that had I not been getting terrorized by these street terrorists. You know?
That's really funny though, man. That's like the perfect
Oh yeah, I
response.
was calling Burger Kings across the country and recording it all over YouTube. It was cool though, to be honest with you. It was pretty fucking cool. I think it was like a wonderful experience to do that, to see what they had to say. But I'm
Yeah.
trying to look back in my life. I'm looking back at my life and I'm just thinking about this stuff. And I was having people using electronical weapons on me and my food was being covertly drugged. I don't know how badly I've been damaged from this. And these newspaper
Mhm.
articles are going back to the 70s.
Yeah.
Like they're experimenting, like they're terrorizing us and stalking and harassing us, and then they're experimenting on us, like they're experimenting different things on us to see how we react to it, so they can have a better criminal syndicate in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's all about the criminal syndicate and controlling it and every element inside of it, including
Right,
people that,
right.
yeah, don't know what's going on.
Yo, yo, yo. Hell yeah, yo.
Yeah. Well, do you want to read
Then
any other passages or anything?
Yeah, I do. I do. Josh, this right here goes into so much. There's so much stuff here. I'm like looking through all these MK Ultra files, and there's so much behavioral stuff on animals and chimps and little girls and little boys and and it just keeps going. Like there's LSD experiments and all different. Like it just there's all different. Like they've been spending millions and millions of dollars. But hold up, I got one.
So there.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I was just looking. I'm sorry. I was just looking at. Hold up, I want to read this. Hold on a second. This is still coming out of the old MK Ultra file. The Director of Central Intelligence, the Honorable Daniel K. Inouye, or what I forgot, the Chairman, Select Committee on Intelligence, United States Senate, Washington, D.C., 20510. Dear Mr. Chairman, hold on a second. During the course of 1975, when the Senate committee chaired by Senator Church was investigating intelligence activities, the CIA was asked to produce documentation on a program of experimentation with the effect of drugs. Under this project, conducted from 1953 to 1964 and known as MKUltra, tests were conducted on American citizens in some cases without their knowledge. The CIA, after searching for such documentation, reported that most of the documents on this matter have been destroyed. I find it my duty to report to you now that our continuing search for drug-related as well as other documents has uncovered certain papers which bear on this matter. Let me hasten to add that I am persuaded that there was no previous attempt to conceal this material. In the original 1975 exploration, the material recently discovered was in the retired archives filed under financial accounts and only uncovered by using extraordinary and extensive search efforts. In this connection, incidentally, I have personally commended the employee whose diligence produces fine. Because the new material now on hand is primarily of a financial nature, it does not present a complete picture of the field of drug experimentation activity, but it does provide more detail than was previously available to us. For example, the following types of activities were undertaken: possible additional cases of drugs being tested on American citizens without their knowledge. Research was undertaken on superstitious methods of administering drugs. Some of the persons chosen for experimentation were drug addicts or alcoholics. Research into the development of a knockout arcade drug was performed in conjunction with being done to develop painkillers for advanced cancer patients, and tests such as patients were carried out. Hold on a second, Josh. I want to read this. This is a lawsuit.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I got two. I'm gonna find. I don't know if that's the right one I wanted to bring up. There was a lawsuit. I think this is the one right here. Okay, this guy right here, Josh. I think he's suing. He's trying to sue for gang stalking. Let me find. Let me find. It's a lawsuit that's in court. It's in federal court regarding gang stalking.
Okay.
Okay, although at this point Cantor had already complained to the FBI that the stalking behavior was tantamount to a death threat, so the group stalking attacks changed in nature. This is all about this guy being stalked, and he went to the feds and came up with some sort of big thing. While Cantor was at the Army, he was followed around after work, and individuals would say, he has been here 2 years and he won't quit. Every time Cantor went to sit down at his desk, which was in a secure building, in a secure compound. Oh, I want people to remember this is new. This isn't from the 1970s MK Ultra thing. This is a lawsuit that somebody sent to me. It's something in court. This guy is prosecuting somebody for stalking, which was in a secure building, in a secure compound, in a military base. A woman who Cantor didn't know would say he's been here 2 years and he won't quit. Cantor was also targeted by similar group stalking attacks when he worked as a contractor at Geneva Software on a project for the United States Department of State, although at that point Cantor had already complained to the FBI that the stalking behavior was tantamount to a death threat, so the group stalking attacks changed in nature. The catchphrase changed from "a person dropped dead after his private information" was repeated to "what a trip" after the group stalking incident. Basically, he's talking about what I can tell you right away, this guy's talking about the mimic effect. As I've said before, how people will mimic you. They will purposely say things and do things to mimic you, and it's a form of psychological harassment that stalking networks utilize. And this has been happening to me for 3 years. I know exactly what he's talking about. And this guy is being stalked, and he's come up with like a whole. He's in court, and I've never seen until I read this. I've never seen anybody in court talking about. He uses group stalking to describe it, but I've never actually seen anybody in court, and he's going after these people for stalking him and using these tactics. And he's like this is very closely related to the MK Ultra thing, and he's suing this guy. His name's Jeffrey Allen Cantor, United States District Court, Eastern District of Virginia, and he's going up against he has all these names listed on here, and he's trying to get these people into court. And it's like the Department of Justice, the Department of Energy, all the way to the Department of State and stuff. And I guess basically what he's saying is he's been getting stalked and harassed, and he's tired of it. He's just tired of everything that's happening, and he wants some answers. Like, he wants to know what's happening. He wants people to investigate it, and he's showing how he's being stalked and harassed. And this is what we're talking about. This is gang stalking. And he had people.
Incredible.
Yeah, he's saying that he was started being stalked and harassed. He typed something in Google, and I guess he's saying that Google took his typing for him looking for a radio controlled bomb. And he's saying that this is happening to him, and it's unconstitutional retaliatory behavior against him. But either this is an experiment, and that's the excuse that they're using to do the experiment, or there's another reason why. That doesn't really sound like, because there's all sorts of people who go out and do stuff like that, and they don't get gang stalked. Gang stalking doesn't have anything to do with what you're doing wrong or something. Gang stalking is a form of harassment that happens to people who are usually whistleblowers, or they're being experimented on. And so I don't really understand his reason for saying why it's happening to him, but he would know.
Oh, I
but
bet.
Huh?
It's like, because I remember reading part of that a few weeks ago, and I kind of thought the same thing. And I think maybe that could be either what was the defining moment for him, or he just was like, I have to have something that sounds reasonable. Like, I can't come in and say that I know that it's this other thing. Like, if you had to go in with the lawsuit and try to explain MK Ultra again to them and put this document in there, and this, that, and the other, it's much easier to just say, well, it's workplace retaliation for a bad Google search. Which is sad that it has to be that way. But I kind of feel like if he even just gets some type of, if he wins and then sets a precedent, it's going to help build more and more cases where the other aspect of it can start to come out.
Mhm. Yeah, most definitely. And Josh, you said you had been reading this. You were already reading this. You remember it from before or something? You were reading it.
The Cantor thing. I can't remember why I found it, but I had found it, and I was reading that part about the remote controlled bomb thing, and I was like, geez Louise. Wasn't he working at Lockheed Martin when he did that accidentally, or someplace like that?
Yeah, he was working. Yeah, this guy was working for the government. This man
Yeah.
was working for, I think it was Lockheed Martin or something. He was actually working for the government, for the military and the government. Like he was a part of the government. And then they started stalking him. And this law states that stalking across two, so he's in federal court because he's saying that he's been stalked across two states or something. But I haven't read this whole thing, and so I don't know very much. Like I've only glimpsed over it, but he just sounds like he's been severely traumatized and severely fucked with. And I know what he's
Yeah.
talking about with the mimic effect, how they're mimicking him and stuff. And I think for
Yeah.
most people, you know what I mean, most people don't get, well, I know exactly how, if this is, if this is happening to him, I know exactly how he's living because I've been going through it for 3 years. And
Yeah. It's kind of like a lot of times it's like not even for me it was never like good mimicking. It was like mocking. Like you could go in and be doing your grocery shopping, and somebody who knows what you like would come up and be like, "Oh boy, a pint of almond milk." You know, like you're an idiot for buying, some almond milk. You know what I
mhm.
mean? Making little comments like that. Oh, that used to piss me off a lot. But with those people, it kind of stopped because I actually would verbally, not quite under my breath, just a little bit too loud, would usually tell them to go F off. So eventually that stopped. But I wasn't nice. I actually would take a chance and actually just sort of say snide, sarcastic things right next to the people who just said stuff to me. So,
Yeah. And then it looks
and
like
yeah,
Cantor, he was Jewish,
um, was
and
he?
and he was getting racial discriminatory stuff said to him because he was Jewish. And he went to the Anti-Defamation League. It says after Cantor complained to the Anti-Defamation League, they began repeating back his information and then immediately talk about people dropping dead from hypertension. I know exactly what he's saying. He went to
Mhm.
the Anti-Defamation League and we're telling them about the stalking and the threats and the racial discrimination he was getting, and then the stalking networked through the Anti-Defamation League and found out what he was saying. And they took the information and gave it back to the people who were stalking him, and they used it and utilized it as more of a form of harassment and stalking. I know exactly what he's
Mhm.
talking about. Exactly.
Uh, uh, the subtle threats. Oh, cancer. They'll say as you walk by.
Yeah.
They'll
Well,
think
when I
they're
was getting death threats, there was a period where I was actually getting real death threats, like real death, like not like that, but I know exactly what he's talking about though, how these people use different forms of mimicking and they go around fucking with people. Like basically there's some sort of disinformation campaign that's being spread about this guy behind his back, and they're paying people to harass and to stalk him, and that's what this is about.
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Yo. And that's just one. That's one. There was another one. There was another one. I wonder what else he was going through.
Yeah, that I do wonder that too. I think it'd be interesting for us to continue studying his case and maybe a couple of other current ones. Maybe if we ever do it like a second reading call to go on these more of these modern cases and see what's happening.
Yeah, yeah. There's another one about this guy named Kane, and we've been on here a long time anyway. We don't really have the time, but he gets more into like the radio frequency micro stimulators, which are two
Okay.
millimeter in diameter and 16 millimeters in length, micro electromechanical systems, microstimulators, which are that have been implanted throughout the bodies of the plaintiff. Damn, he's saying he was implanted with stuff like the
Oh,
MK
okay.
Ultra, just like MK Ultra.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
that's worth looking into.
yep, yep. It's funny how I can just read what these people saying, and I'll know exactly what they're talking about because I've been experiencing
Hmm.
it for 3 years. I've spoken to like over 100 people going through it, so I don't even need to know him or know who he is. I can just read what he's saying. I'll immediately know what the fuck he's talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. If you listen to you should listen to some of the testimony from Karen Stewart about how she got basically harassed out of the NSA and has been getting stalked by them. She's got an EEOC case that's been languishing for like 8 years, and what they did is they took out the letter from her psychologist that said she was perfectly sane. She's passed like every lie detector and every psych test they've ever given her. But then once some new people came in and they wanted to take her work on, I think it was Gulf War II, her intel that package she put together, they gave the credit to this younger woman who was sleeping with the weapons and space guy. So this lady got a double promotion off of Karen's work, and then when Karen complained about it, they accused her of being insane and saying that they were discriminating against her because she's white, and then they fired her. And like, this is a total mess. It's a total mess, but I highly recommend listening to her story as well. Because she's not let it
Right.
go. She's like these
And
people with
and
hate.
Josh, I don't want to forget to mention, I'm from Michigan. I'm from Muskegon, Michigan, and where I'm from is where Kathy O'Brien's from. And I actually grew up for a part of my life down the street from where Kathy O'Brien went to high school at. And one of my sisters went to the same high school as Kathy O'Brien. And Kathy O'Brien's the famous MK Ultra chick.
Right.
Right. So the most famous MK Ultra survivor is actually from the same city as me. Grew up in the same city as me.
That is pretty weird to hear that close in
Isn't
that
that fucking
area.
crazy? Isn't that fucking crazy?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
that's
know
really
Kathy
strange.
O'Brien. I've talked to her a couple times. She's cool. I know her. And I haven't. It's been a while since I talked to her. But I'm from the same city as the most famous MK Ultra survivor. Like she's done more lectures and more things than anybody. And I thought that was pretty fascinating.
That is pretty fascinating. It'd be really neat if you got her on for an interview. If you
Kathy,
ever
wouldn't that
manage
be
to get her
fucking cool?
yeah, that would be great.
I just don't. I know Kathy would probably want some money. Maybe she would do
Right.
it.
I guess
Yep,
it
Kathy
depends. I guess it depends
O'Brien,
how you
born
pitch.
December. Kathy O'Brien or Kathleen Ann O'Brien, born December 4th, 1957, Muskegon, Michigan, is an American author and speaker who claims to be a victim of government mind control program called Project Monarch, which she alleges was part of the CIA's Project MK Ultra. Yep.
Yeah. Well, hey, Jamil, I may need to
I
wrap up
know.
because it looks like my dog is coming up at me wanting some food or attention or something. I don't know which it is.
Okay. Well, Josh, this has been a really amazing interview, and we weren't able to cover nearly, like, we only, like, just got into like scratching a little bit on the subject of mind control. And but I thank you for giving me the time, your time to help me wrap up this off the grid thing. And as we can see, the mind control, I want to just put this to a conclusion. As we can see, the mind control experiments of the 50s, 60s, and 70s are far from over. The experimentation's still going on. It just has different front groups, different masks, different networking, maybe even different money coming from different sources, but it's still going on. And maybe the experimentation that happened to people then has perfected the system of psychological harassment that's happening today to people. And I've been going through it for 3 years. Josh, you've been going through it for a long time yourself. And I just want to give people the insight and the power, in their hands to decide what they want to do with it, and they can go from there. And as far as my life's concerned, I do courses and counseling for crisis counseling. I do courses for people, and and that's what I do with my life. And it's been happening to me for 3 years. And Josh, I'm done. I mean, you got it. If you just want to say goodbye to the people or whatever, we can just close off. It's up to you. Whatever you want to go.
All right. Well, I want to thank you because this was educational for me as well, and I hope that the other people got some stuff out of it too. And don't forget to support the Money Bomb that Jamil is doing, and we will have new episodes for you guys again pretty soon.
Right. Okay, Josh. Amazing interview. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.